Hi guys, my name is Matti Sulanto and today it's all about street photography. Today I'm out here on the streets of Helsinki to do some street photography with the Lumix GX880 camera. I'm going to tell a bit more about this camera and how well it works in street photography in a few moments, but let's first establish what street photography means to me. There's gotta be quite a few definitions of street photography, but to me it means observing what is happening around me and trying to capture interesting moments in everyday, even mundane situations. Those situations don't necessarily include people at all, but there's gotta be some traces of people or human life in those shots. Otherwise, I don't think it qualifies as a street photography or street photo. In my personal photography, I find it really difficult to get motivated to do any kind of staged photographs. And I think it's because I've done countless of assignments or jobs for my clients over the years, and all those have been somehow staged or made to order. So what is so special about street photography then? Well, I have always liked documentary photography. Street photography for me is my way of documenting what is happening around me and also how my surroundings are changing over time. I'm also not a big fan of outdoor activities like hiking or camping, so the urban environment is also perfect in that sense for me to practice my photography. Street photography is also unpredictable and offers enough challenges for me to keep my interest up. If things are getting too easy or become routine, I tend to lose interest really soon. When I'm shooting, I usually walk around and see what I can find. I very seldom stay at one spot and wait for something to show up. I guess I'm just too impatient for that. I don't have a favorite time of the day to shoot, but I like hard sunlight. I think it's partly because Finland is not a very sunny country and it's always nice to see the sun, but I also like how the sharp dark shadows transform the scene and make interesting elements in my pictures. I think street photography is one of the most forgiving genres of photography when it comes to the technical qualities of the image. I mean, the content is always the most important element in any shot, I think. But I also think that in street photography we tend to forgive a little bit more blurriness or graininess if there is a delicious situation or composition in the shot. What I just said doesn't mean that a street photo should be grainy or blurry, but I'm saying that you shouldn't be too worried about the gear you are using. I think any camera should be good enough, in technical sense, good enough for street photography, even your phone. But I just think a real camera is so much nicer to handle than a phone, especially if you're doing street. Today I'm using the Lumix GX880 with the very small tiny 12 to 32 millimeter kit zoom lens. This combination is actually quite nice for street photography because it's so tiny and people don't stare at it or it doesn't draw any attention. this kit lens is almost perfect for street because it offers a versatile 24 to 64 millimeter equivalent angle of view, and I don't need a paper thin depth of field when I'm shooting street. If there's no motion in my picture, I use aperture priority mode and set the aperture to f1.6. If I was using a full frame camera, I would set the aperture at f11 to get enough depth of field. But if I want to freeze action on this camera, I'm using shutter priority with auto ISO and set my shutter speed at 250 or faster. If I'm using a full frame camera, I'm using manual mode with auto ISO and set my aperture at f11 and my shutter speed at 250 or faster. The reason for that is that on a full frame camera, shutter priority can open up the aperture too much and I don't get enough depth of field in my shots. On a Micro Four Thirds camera, it's not a problem, especially with a kit lens, because the maximum aperture is f3.5. If I'm shooting JPEG, I use 1/3 of a stop or 2/3 of a stop negative exposure compensation to protect the highlights. But unfortunately, the same exposure doesn't work for RAW, and if I'm using or shooting RAW, then I will expose to the right and use my zebra to get the perfect exposure every time. All the pictures in this video were shot on this Lumix GX880 and the 12 to 32 millimeter kit lens. And I also had to use JPEG because right now Lightroom still doesn't support the RAW files of this camera. What is your favorite street setup? Please let me know in the comments down below, and also your favorite settings for street photography. I hope you enjoyed this video, even though it was a little bit less about the gear than usual. Remember to go out, to have fun, make great images. See you next time.